Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 38th International Churchill Society Conference. The Atlantic meeting set the stage for the Anglo-American alliance, but it was an alliance that only came into being after the Japanese attack at Pearl Harbor. Churchill rushed to Washington, crossing U-boat-infested seas in order to stand shoulder to shoulder with the President and to address the joint houses of Congress. It was a moment of high drama, and one that has now been brought to the stage. The play Alliance by Giles Cole, inspired by the book The Big Sleepover at the White House by James Wilson. It is... Oh, here we go. It is thanks to producers Julia Holofcener and Graham Pountney that we are able to, and very privileged to, bring you a taster today. Thank you very much.
Yes, I'm Julia, widow of Lawrence Holofcener, sculptor of allies, Churchill and Roosevelt on a bench on Bond Street. Some of you may have seen it. Some of you have probably had your pictures taken. And as of yesterday morning, there is now a life-size of John Lennon on Carnaby Street. That was just unveiled yesterday. In 2015, James Wilson, the author of Churchill and Roosevelt, The Big Sleepover at the White House, approached us about using allies on the cover of his new book. Naturally, we agreed. A few months later, he inquired as to whether we knew a playwright, as several people had indicated that his book would make a delightful two-character play. My husband was a lyricist and a playwright on Broadway and decided to tackle the idea. He wrote an historical narrative taken directly from the book. While it was an accurate depiction of Churchill's visit, it was not what I had envisioned as a play. Fortunately, Larry and I had met actor and producer Graham Pountney, and he agreed to become my UK producer. He invited Giles Cole to write a multi-character play inspired by The Big Sleepover. There is a flyer on your table describing the impact of the 3 weeks Churchill spent at the White House over Christmas in 1941. As a member of the International Churchill Society and a devoted Anglophile, having spent 12 years on the Isle of Wight, I am very proud to introduce Giles and scenes from his play, Alliance. Enjoy.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Julia, and thank you to everybody here for allowing us to be part of your conference today. We're very pleased to bring you these few scenes from this play, Alliance. It is still a work in progress, and for the purposes of this reading today, we have put it together with the help of a few actor friends to try and bring it to life for possibly the first time in any realistic way. It's based, as you've just heard, on A Big Sleepover at the White House, and also with references to various other books, including, of course, Churchill, written by Andrew Roberts, and other sources. But it is still essentially a work of imagination, obviously based on historical fact. It just imagines what might have been said behind the closed walls of the White House and elsewhere. So we begin our extracts today with what is actually the fourth scene of the play, and it's set on August the 9th, 1941. Churchill has sailed across the Atlantic, as we heard in the introduction, to meet President Roosevelt in the utmost secrecy aboard USS Augusta at Placentia Bay, just off the coast of Newfoundland. A military band is playing God Save the King, and Churchill then steps aboard, and with some help from Harry Hopkins, his trusted envoy, President Roosevelt rises using his leg braces, ready to greet Churchill. The band fades out, and the two leaders shake hands.
Mr. President, Prime Minister, I'm honored to meet you at long last.
The honor is all mine.
I believe you like films.
I beg your pardon?
movies?
Why, yes.
One of my favorites is about the love affair between Lord Nelson and Lady Hamilton during the Napoleonic War. It came out this year, directed by my friend Alexander Corden, starring Laurence Olivier and Vivian Leigh. It's entitled That Hamilton Woman.
How interesting.
It depicts Britain's resistance to a dictator bent on world domination.
I think I detect a certain resonance there.
I brought you a copy as a gift.
How very kind.
Corder asked me to write some of Nelson's speeches, good for morale.
I'm certain of it.
I have also brought some refreshment for your crew.
Thank you. We've done likewise. A few items which I know are in short supply in England: fresh fruit, cheese, chocolate, cigarettes.
Most bounteous, I'm sure. We've been much deprived of such luxuries. Oh, and I have a letter for you from His Majesty the King.
Thank you.
Well, shall we begin?
We thought perhaps tomorrow, after we've all had a chance to recover. You must be tired after your voyage across the treacherous oceans.
Never felt better.
Let's get to know each other a little, Prime Minister. We'll meet for dinner.
And in the second scene, it's now after dinner on board USS Augusta. Churchill is alone with Roosevelt in his wheelchair.
Prime Minister, I will confess that I remember all too well, clearly, the first time we met.
The first time? Surely this is the first time.
No, not so. You said you were honored to meet me at long last, so you won't recall, but we first met at a banquet in your honor, London, Gray's Inn, in 1918. You were His Majesty's Minister for Munitions, and I was a young Assistant Secretary of the Navy, very much your junior in rank and experience.
1918, you said?
1918. I sought you out to have a word about naval history and strategy, and finally I found my moment. I spoke to you, but you barely acknowledged me.
Did I?
I'm afraid you did, and being a callow youth, I took it to heart. You were the great man, so I wanted to meet you.
To be perfectly frank, Mr. President, it had slipped my mind. I do apologize. I expect I was showing off, rather.
Well, let's just say that British pomp and circumstance came between us. But I've met you now, and this time it is you who has sought me out.
Quite so.
So what became known as the Atlantic Conference proceeds with a favorable outcome, but not without some friction between Churchill and the US commanders, as exemplified in this play by General George C. Marshall, who at this point is determined upon an America First policy. So here is a speech by Churchill as he attempts to persuade General Marshall of the necessity for aircraft, ships, and munitions.
General, I admire and respect your convictions about the American people, and I therefore understand that you feel you must put America first. But I am not here simply to pay lip service to you and President and then walk away with a heavy heart. You hold all the cards in this particular matter that I grant you. I come to you in supplication, which does not fit comfortably with me, nor with the people I represent, but it must be done. I think we have an understanding between us whereby you will support us in our hour of need, and I beseech you humbly to honor that understanding before it is too late. Or do you wish to see our little nation overrun and erased from the map? If that is your wish, I will waste no more words. But I hope and trust that your humanity will prevail. Thank you, gentlemen.
There is friction, too, with Roosevelt and the commanders over the question of British colonial policy. However, the Atlantic Charter is, as you know, signed, and Churchill is impatient for progress, which is still not forthcoming. So this next short scene between him and Harry Hopkins exemplifies Churchill's attitude, though in reality it would not have been with Hopkins, but with the newly appointed ambassador to Britain, John Gill Wynant.
Yes, 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 that's all very well, but the question is when? The president has a knack of saying what he knows you want to hear, and then nothing happens.
I can only say that the United States will enter the war as soon as it becomes possible.
But what does that mean? This year, next year, sometime, never? Doesn't he realize the gravity of the situation?
He certainly does, Prime Minister.
He signed the Atlantic Charter, Harry. How can he now honorably stay out? Do signatures mean nothing? Does honor?
Prime Minister.
Don't keep prime ministering me. We must have an American declaration of war, or our civilization and our culture will be wiped out. Join us now, and we could have victory within 2 years. Stay out, and it could drag on for 4, 5 more years. Is that what America wants, is it?
The best case I can see is that we could be persuaded by March next year.
7 months away. 7 months, having signed the charter a fortnight ago.
Yes, sir. And that is a very optimistic estimate. You must understand. The Atlantic Charter was concerned with the future. Our joint vision for the future was not about what must happen now.
Then what was the point of it? What was the point of trailing over the ocean for a secret rendezvous that you advised me to undertake?
It keeps the channels of communication open.
Well, forgive me, Harry, but I don't see much communication going on.
And we now move forward to December 1941, and what is in fact scene 6 in the play. As you will all know, on December 7th, the Japanese carry out a daring and unexpected air raid on the American fleet at Pearl Harbor. This greatly changes things, and here Churchill is at checkers, taking control of the situation as best he can, pacing up and down, composing a memo.
Memo to Lord Beaverbrook, Minister of Supply. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, Malaya, Hong Kong, Bangkok, and Singapore have also been bombed by the Japanese. They are clearly scenting blood on our side, too. The United States may have declared war on Japan, but not on Germany. The situation is therefore grave. There is a strong possibility that the U.S. will allocate all its resources in a retaliatory strike against Japan, which would leave us as exposed as ever in standing alone against that detestable bastard Hitler. No, just say Hitler. Beaverbrook knows my feelings about him. We must consult as a matter of urgency. Don't talk to Dill, not yet. I want us to agree before we talk to Field Marshal Dill, who is clearly palling up with General Marshall of the U.S. Army, the two bloody marshals together. He'll contradict me before I even open my mouth. No, don't say that either. No, in fact, don't say any of that.
My dear, you really must not get into a panic.
What?
Calm yourself.
Clemmy.
I told you before about making irrational and ill-judged decisions.
I'm not making any blasted decisions. I'm just thinking aloud.
Don't shout at me. I'm not one of your underlings.
I'm not shouting. I'm simply stating a case.
Oh, really, my dear? You must try to do better than that. When you shout and stamp your feet, well, it makes you look small. I think you ought to know, Winston, that there is a danger that your colleagues and your subordinates may lose respect for you if your manner is too rough and overbearing.
Is that so?
I have heard so, yes. I wrote you a note about it.
Oh.
You are not as kind as you used to be.
Is it the job of a prime minister to be kind?
It is the job of a prime minister to hold power and to exercise it wisely. I couldn't bear to think that those who serve you unstintingly should not respect and admire you as I do.
Have you quite finished, woman?
I may finish with you if you talk to me like that.
Finish with me, you wouldn't dare.
I most certainly would dare, and you know it. I have no idea why you consider yourself to be so important to me that I couldn't possibly do without you. I live quite happily without you most of the time. I married you because we were in tune on many matters of importance in the world, not for your looks or your reputation, though I do have to say you did look rather fine in a uniform. But that was then. Now you are a man with the weight of the world upon his shoulders, who has little time for wife or family, but who relies heavily on both for moral support. Be careful, my dear. Listen to me. Be guided by me.
You are a completely impossible woman.
Yes, I flatter myself that I am. An impossible man must have someone to look up to.
Very clever. Now, where was I?
Hitler, Dill, and two bloody marshals. I would beware of too many expletives, my dear.
Perhaps you would like to try your hand at running the blasted war.
Well, strange though it may seem, I do sometimes think that I would have made a good politician, if only I'd been born with trousers instead of petticoats.
Is that so?
Why not? Give me one good reason.
Because it's not fitting.
I see, not fitting for someone of the gentler sex. You really shouldn't overburden yourself, my dear, with an excess of self-belief.
What?
Or you might explode in a ball of Churchillian grandeur, and that would be very messy. Oh, please don't shout at me again. I'm not in the mood for another of your rages, Winston. Well, continue with your memo to Beaverbrook, and I shall go and do something useful about the house, as a good wife should. Oh, and do let me know when you'll be ready for dinner.
And it is now December 12th, 1941. A projected headline on the stage would read, "Germany and Italy declare war on the US." And then another, "Roosevelt retaliates, America now at war with Germany." And we see Roosevelt and Churchill spotlit, one in checkers, one in the White House. They're speaking into telephone receivers, but looking directly at each other.
Franklin, I need to come and see you again.
Well, Winston, things are a little strained right now.
I appreciate that, but the new wartime leader cannot abandon his post, so once again, I will come to you.
Winston, this war has barely begun. General Marshall and Admiral Stark are setting their war strategy, and we'll not need the interference, however well-intentioned, of the British Prime Minister.
I wouldn't suggest it if it weren't imperative. I must persuade you and the American people that it would be the gravest folly to concentrate on Japan alone. It must be Germany first.
This is premature, Winston. The American people need time to assimilate the recent shocking events, and that's all the more reason why we can't afford the distraction of a visiting head of state.
Our chiefs of staff need to meet face to face, as they did in August. Now, I will bring all the same people as before: Beaverbrook, Halifax, the First Sea Lord, the Chief of Air Staff, and Field Marshal Sir John Dill. We must unite.
Let me be completely frank, Winston. You are 67 years old, and you maintain a schedule that would severely tax a much younger man. You're 8 years older than I am, 4 years older than Stalin, and 15 years older than Hitler. The Atlantic is swarming with German U-boats, and you will be the prize they want to claim more than any other. It would be foolhardy and dangerous in the extreme. In the extreme, Winston.
You are entirely correct in everything you say, and I'm flattered you are concerned for my well-being, but it is essential, if you value the well-being of our two nations, that I undertake this visit. I shall bring my friend and personal physician, Sir Charles Wilson, to keep me up to the mark. There's not a moment to waste while your people get used to the idea of war. We must lead them, not sit back and wait for them to be ready to be led.
If I know you at all, Winston, you will have already packed your bags. One condition, Winston, one condition.
Well, name it.
You and your closest advisors must stay in the White House. But I warn you, you will have to be extremely well prepared to persuade us of your case, which you signally failed to do at Placentia Bay.
I will be. I am.
When will you sail?
The 13th of December.
Tomorrow?
Exactly. Good night, Franklin. I look forward to seeing you.
May God preserve you, Winston.
Now, December 22nd, 1941, Roosevelt is in his wheelchair in the White House. Harry Hopkins enters with some papers.
Morning, Harry. How are you feeling?
Just fine.
I wish I believed it. You know, Harry, there are many difficult moments that a president has to negotiate in the time of 3 terms in office.
You hardly surprise me there.
But today, I think I face my stiffest task of all.
You mean you're meeting with Mr. Churchill?
No, I mean explaining to my wife that she is going to be meeting Mr. Churchill. And that she will be having him and his chief of staff stay here for Christmas.
Yes, yeah, I do see.
As you know, Harry, Eleanor is very accommodating and a supportive spouse.
Absolutely.
She has many fine qualities.
That is widely known and appreciated.
But she does like to be in charge of all domestic arrangements at all times.
Yeah, especially Christmas.
Correct. So, wish me luck, Harry.
I do, Franklin. I sincerely do.
At this point, Eleanor enters, busily with a hardback notepad and a pen, jotting things down as she goes.
Do you have some documents for me there, Harry?
Yeah, memos from the chiefs of staff. They can wait.
And Hopkins exits. The president has a newspaper to hand, which he starts reading.
I thought you would be in the blue room, Franklin. May I ask what you're doing here?
Simply taking a moment to read the news, dear.
I think you are rather making the news at the moment, aren't you?
Oh, you mean declaring war on Japan and Germany? Well, yes, that is fairly newsworthy. Eleanor?
Please don't interrupt, Franklin. How many children will be here on Christmas Day, do you imagine?
I really couldn't say.
Well, then it's lucky that I can, isn't it?
She looks around the room as if calculating the Christmas decoration requirements and then starts to leave.
I really think that you ought to get back to work, Franklin. You have a war to run, don't you?
Eleanor, don't go. A moment, please. I need a moment of your time.
Then do please be brief. I have a press conference this morning and a radio broadcast to prepare.
I understand how busy you are, my dear.
Then, what is it?
Eleanor, you know I said we might have some guests dropping in over Christmas?
Yes, we usually do. People drop in all the time. Though with new security arrangements as they are,
Nevertheless, we may need some extra gifts.
You should know me well enough by now, my dear, to realize that I always have a stock of extra gifts, just in case.
Champagne? Brandy? French wine? Scotch whiskey? Are we well stocked with those?
I do wish that you would leave the housekeeping to me. I really haven't got time for this. I've let half the staff take Christmas leave, and I'm up to my eyes in the preparations.
You let half the staff go?
Well, almost half. We can manage perfectly well with the remainder. Well, is that all? May I go now?
Eleanor, I have to tell you something, and you're not going to like it.
Oh, for goodness sakes, Franklin, what is it?
Please, sit down, dear.
I don't have time to sit down.
Very well. We're going to have some important house guests with us.
Oh, how important and for how long?
Of crucial importance, and for a few days.
You mean over Christmas?
Yes, dear, I do. The British Prime Minister is coming to stay with us. He will not be coming alone. He'll be bringing his top military advisors, and we will need to have rooms converted for their use. In particular, I thought the Monroe Room could be adapted as an office for maps and such like. I think that just about covers it.
Did I hear you correctly, Franklin?
Yes, dear, you did.
Winston Churchill, that pompous little Englishman, will be staying here with us over Christmas.
He's half American. His mother was born in Brooklyn.
I have no interest in where his mother was born. Do you think my position here is of such secondary importance that you can invite whomever that you please to spend Christmas here and expect me to say, yes, dear, and carry on sweetly like a domestic pet? Do I not deserve to be consulted? On these matters, I will not be treated this way, I will not. And what am I supposed to do about the staff? Recall them all from their holiday?
I'm sure they'll understand, my dear. It's a matter of national importance.
Well, all I can say to you, Mr. President, is be careful. Be very careful. Or that little man will try to run rings around you and get you to do everything that suits him and the British and not the American people.
I will remember that.
I am very angry, Franklin.
I know, my dear, and I'm sorry. I will do my best not to try your patience too hard.
And I will do my best, as ever, to be the perfect hostess, as you well know. We may have little between us anymore, Franklin, but I do still require a basic respect.
I assure you, you have it. No First Lady could do as much as you do.
How long are these British going to be staying? How many days is a few in your estimation?
It would be wise to count on 15 to 20. I expect them to stay to New Year's Day at least. I'm afraid it is necessary, my dear.
And when are they arriving?
At 4 o'clock this afternoon. They'll be docking at Hampton Roads and then flying the remaining distance here. I'll be greeting them at the National Airport at 3:30.
There are times, Franklin, when you simply astonish me. Do you think it is fitting that you are seen to be kowtowing to a colonial apologist who has a most questionable record as a leader of men? Do you have anything to say to me?
No, Eleanor, I think that's all.
December 23rd, 1941, Churchill has arrived at the White House with his entourage. And here we give an example of Churchill up against it, trying to win over the President and the US commanders, in particular General Marshall, in a scene which marks the end of Act 1 of the play. So Churchill here addresses both Marshall and the President.
Gentlemen, I come as a friend and an ally whose country stands on the verge of annihilation. Annihilation, gentlemen. The European countries are being overrun by a fanatical tyrant of the First Order. It's not just for Great Britain that I argue my case. It is for the free world as we know it. Can we ask ourselves to look back in years to come and say, we could have fought for freedom, but we did not? We could have stopped this monster in his tracks, but we did not. What kind of a world would it be in which we ask ourselves such questions? It would be a world of cruelty and tyranny, far worse than we can imagine now. All that we hold dear will be crushed, our liberty, our heritage, our very spirit. I endured 10 days at sea in appalling conditions, zigzagging across the Atlantic to avoid the U-boats, risking the lives of many men, my own included, to come and speak to you here. And why did I do that? Not for pleasure, not out of bravado, but simply because I could see no other way to impress upon you the enormity of the peril that we now face. All of us. I am not prepared to go down in history as the man who allowed Hitler to beat down the door of humanity. Do you understand that, General? Do you? Do you want that? It is simple humanity that is at stake here, and it is your duty to oppose the tyrant as much as it is mine. It is as much your... It is as much your duty, gentlemen.
I think we should let the matter rest there for today.
May I escort you to your room, sir?
Mr. President, gentlemen, I simply ask you as a friend to look beyond your own boundaries and join us now, not in a year or 2 years, but now in a just cause, a cause that must be won and can only be won with your assistance.
Winston, it's not just General Marshall and Admiral Stark, but General Arnold, Admiral Leahy, Admiral King, Secretary of War Stimson. They can't be persuaded. We support you, absolutely, but now is not the time. Please, go with Harry. You need rest.
Churchill finally looks up at Roosevelt with the look of a man defeated.
Will you let me address Congress? It's my only chance. It's Britain's only remaining chance.
And that is the end of Act 1, but our final scene today is later on in Act 2, after Churchill has been taken ill with a suspected heart attack.
I warned you, Franklin. I said it was a bad idea to let him come here. What if he is severely incapacitated? What if he dies? How will that look? The British Prime Minister dying in the White House, it will seem to all the world as if it was our fault. He comes here to persuade you to join the war against Hitler and drops dead trying to open a window.
My dear, I don't think we should be too hard on him for being taken ill.
No, of course not, but it's just so awkward.
Sir Charles is with him now. We await word.
His drinking habits don't help.
That I admit.
Oh, you men indulging yourselves and hoping not to be found out. You are all like naughty children.
Well, we never quite lose that quality, I think. Even presidents and prime ministers. It would be very hard to be sober and serious and exemplary in conduct at all times.
Oh, you are a trial to me, Franklin. You truly are.
I know, my dear. I'm sorry.
And your Mr. Churchill is even more so.
He is quite a character.
Please, my dear, do consider your health.
Yes, I often do.
But all this late-night nonsense, it's not like you, Franklin.
It's not like the me that you approve of.
Oh. Let's not get into approval and disapproval, not again. I care about you. Not that you deserve it.
No, I know. But look at me. I think I've been punished enough for my misdemeanor.
No, You can't look at it like that.
No, you're right. The two things are entirely unrelated. I'm being sentimental.
Yeah, Franklin, you're tired and you're not thinking straight.
I hope you're wrong about that. We have important things on our minds right now.
Yes, now you have Winston Churchill, your drinking companion, and his absurd nocturnal habits. And he may be dying on our doorstep. Can't you see he's not good for you, Franklin? You can't be like him, and you shouldn't be. Whatever the differences between us, I am still your wife, and I just want a little common sense to prevail. That's all. I don't want to keep lecturing you. You know I don't, but someone has to protect you.
Protect me?
From yourself.
From myself? I thought it was Churchill I had to be protected from.
Oh, I think you're just a little bit flattered that he's come all this way to seek your help.
Eleanor, my dear, please do credit me with a little more statesmanship than that. I assure you, I do know what I am doing.
All right. But have a care, Franklin. Do have a care.
I have no intention of writing an open check to the British government, and I have no intention of letting him bulldoze his ways through his own agenda. Which is precisely what this Arcadia conference is about. It protects our position as much as it aids his. And a little late-night drinking might actually be a welcome change in this household. Ah, Harry, what's the news? How's our guest?
Well, the official diagnosis is coronary insufficiency, which I take to mean a heart attack. Sir Charles Wilson informs me that the textbook treatment for this is at least, 6 weeks in bed.
No.
No, the eyes of the press would turn on Churchill. He'd turn him into an invalid, a cripple almost.
But fortunately, Sir Charles understands that. He takes the view that Mr. Churchill has the constitution of an ox and has ordered him to rest for a couple of days only. He believes that the extremities of the exertions of the last few days, they've overtaxed him.
So he will be okay.
Sir Charles believes so. In fact, he's gone so far as to say that it is very likely that Mr. Churchill will be demanding a large scotch and a cigar before the day is out.
Oh, for heaven's sake, what kind of doctor is he?
Well, a pragmatic type, I think, Eleanor. One who knows his patient well.
It seems to me that he is just a little bit too indulgent towards that patient, as we all are. Well, at least he is going to live. We should all be grateful for that.
And she goes.
Did I interrupt something?
Nothing unusual. A man who commits a disloyal act must suffer being reminded of it every now and then.
Oh, I see. That.
Yes. There's no denying it creates a difficult situation, Harry. A difficult ongoing situation. I wonder if Mr. Churchill has the same problem.
Wow. Gives every appearance of being perfectly happily married.
Yes, but so do I, Harry.
Oh, yeah. Now, my impression is that Mr. Churchill relies rather heavily on his wife's support, and indeed her opinions. She is extremely intelligent and forthright, and actively engages in the issues of the day.
I think I, too, can count myself fortunate in that regard.
Quite so, quite so. As you know, I have the greatest respect for Eleanor.
Which is entirely as it should be. Well, I must get to work, Harry. Please ask Sir Charles Wilson to come see me when he's finished with his patient.
Yes, sir.
As we all know, ladies and gentlemen, Churchill recovers and the deliberations continue. But for today, we leave it there. Thank you very much for your attention.